Welcome back to the further adventures of the monad. In the previous presentation, we started to review why the causal body is crucial to a monad's further evolution. For the first time in its existence, it has no shared envelopes with any other monad. The sharing of a range of envelopes was the norm in the three lower kingdoms of nature. This causal envelope is the ultimate repository of three of the permanent atoms and one permanent molecule that has been activated by the monad so far in its evolution through its triad structure. These atoms and molecule cannot be lost because they represent our memories, traits, and abilities. What we saw in the last presentation was the building out of the lower causal, mental, emotional, and finally the etheric envelopes. We are talking about 4 envelopes here, 3 of which constitute what we call our first triad. Look at this column and the nested envelopes. Notice any difference between them. The etheric, emotional, and mental envelopes all have a red dot in them. This represents either a permanent atom or a permanent molecule. However, the envelope that encases all of them, the causal envelope, has no permanent structure. This has huge implications. The mental, emotional, and etheric envelopes are functional units. They allow the monad to operate effectively on the 3 lowest subplanes of plane 49. They are not the monad itself. They are just overcoats. The monad may reside in one of the permanent structures in one of the envelopes, but as these envelopes themselves are temporary, it is only the permanent structures, the atoms and one molecule, that survive the dissolution of the envelopes at the end of an incarnation. So, what is the lower causal envelope doing? It is holding those attributes that come to be known as the persona of an individual. This is you, as you see yourself in the mirror. This is your personality, and supposedly your very essence. This is who you call your mother, your father, sister, brother, or your life partner. This is the entity that history remembers and celebrates or condemns. There is one small issue. There is no structure present in this envelope to store the memories of this particular incarnation and the personality associated with it. This will become clearer as we continue the journey of the monad into physical incarnation. We left the sequence of events in the past presentation with the principal etheric body having formed inside the emotional envelope. The physical etheric embryo is still a completely separate entity. We now come to the main event, your birthday. The etheric body containing your permanent physical atom 49.1 unites with the etheric envelope of the embryo. Suddenly, the embryo has become your body. Elvis has entered the building. At this precise moment, your guardian angel connects the life thread to your heart chakra, and the director shouts, "Action!" Let's review what we have now. Our personal etheric envelope is permanently attached to the physical organism. Should these 2 structures ever become detached from one another, there is no way to reconnect the life thread. You can take it upon yourself to unilaterally disconnect the life thread. It's called suicide. But this has very unfortunate consequences for the monad. If your guardian angel disconnects the life thread, this is your destiny and everything is progressing according to a plan that was drawn up before you incarnated. The physical etheric body is shown contained within the emotional body. We know this is the case because clairvoyants report it to be so. The emotional body itself is contained within the mental body. Surrounding all of this finally comes the lower causal body. The first self stretches all the way up to the higher causal body, but this sits aloof on the second triad at present, disconnected from the action occurring on the first triad. After, hopefully, a long and fruitful life, the time has come to reverse the process that brought the monad into incarnation. The guardian angel disconnects a life thread, and the link between the etheric envelope and the organism is severed. This is bad news for the organism, because although it still has ATP molecules within its mitochondria, there are no controlling signals coming from the etheric, and what is more, the life force that the life thread instills in the whole incarnating structure on the first triad has been withdrawn. Consequently, the physical organism starts to decay. It is amazing how rapid this process is. You could say, well, the heart is no longer beating, so no oxygen is getting to the cells of the body. Consequently, no ATP is being recycled. This is all true. However, the pivotal role the etheric envelope played in the functioning of the organism, called your body, is something medicine has yet to fathom. When it does, diagnoses and treatment of ailments will enter a new dimension. The events that occur as the monad withdraws its focus from its various envelopes will be presented at another time. What we are looking at here is the dissolution of all the envelopes of incarnation, and now it is the turn of the etheric principle to dissolve. When it does so, it leaves the emotional body, but its permanent atom remains. It is retained within the remaining envelopes of the monad. The process of incarnation is being reversed in the order it occurred. We are now left with the mental body containing 2 permanent atoms and 1 permanent molecule. These are still surrounded by the lower causal envelope. Finally, even the mental body is abandoned, and the permanent atoms and 1 permanent molecule are transferred to the lower causal body alone. This body may contain the memories of all the events that have just occurred in the current incarnation, plus all the subconscious memories from previous incarnations, but they are not part of the lower causal structure. They are just contained within it. The lower causal body contained elemental essences that represented traits, skills, attributes, and lessons learnt from previous incarnations. These are what surrounded the lower 3 principal bodies and accounted for what was deemed to be the personality of the person who has just finished its incarnation. What was learned from this incarnation has to be transferred into the causal substance that is contained within the lower causal body. What exactly this entails is dealt with in the next presentation. Suffice to say, there is hopefully a net gain in the lessons learnt from the recently terminated incarnation. This does not have to be the case. There are many characters in history who you could imagine would rather forget their last incarnation rather than celebrate it. The mental body now dissolves, and the lower causal body reunites with the higher causal body. All 3 permanent atoms and 1 permanent molecule are now resident in one structure. Memories from each of the lower envelopes are safely tucked away in each of the permanent atoms and 1 permanent molecule, but there was no permanent structure in the lower causal body. It brought home lessons learnt, but those lessons are poured back into the reunited causal structure and disappear into the collective causal being. There is no remembrance of the personality that may be remembered by other monads who are still incarnated, but it is not remembered or celebrated by the soul. I say soul because this is euphemistically what the monad is called at this stage of its evolution. If you want to think of a functional soul, then consider the guardian angel. The monad may have stored up masses of memories and knowledge from past incarnations. However, it is as yet not aware of them objectively. The person that was is no more. It was always a sham, an imposter, standing in for the monad that was still trying to get to grips with all its envelopes and trying to control what went on inside them. The complete cycle just presented repeats itself thousands of times. In each turn of the wheel of life, the monad hopes to gain mastery of itself and its envelopes. It hopes to expand its consciousness and to eventually learn that the way to advance is not just to acquire experiences and knowledge, but to then convert them into wisdom. The objective is to serve the whole process of evolution. That is achieved by a life of service and all the monads that go to make up the service. The persona just discarded is no more. But there clearly was a reason for this persona to exist in the first place. There must be a mechanism by which a monad comes to know itself. How is a life remembered? How are the lessons learnt and retained? The answer to these questions form the subject of the next presentation. Thank you.